Welcome back to this episode of Self-Healing Circle. And today...
What are we doing today, Soccer?
I am bearing it all. You probably noticed already, my face is bare. And look...
And beautiful.
Thank you. Look, it's taken me quite some time to have the courage to be able to do something like this. Mm-hmm. And it was only prompted the other day by one of our listeners. They said, why don't you guys do something where you bear it all? And I took it literally.
Yeah.
And I'm taking it literally right now.
Yeah.
Just look at me.
So fresh.
Look.
It's beautiful. I didn't get the memo, so I was heading out after, so I quickly slapped some on.
I know. So I sent Michelle this text. I said, look, I'm just going to GRWM. And she just went, what the?
Look, I'm meanwhile trying to look after 3 little kids, get out of the house on time. So I was like, I'm sure she'll explain it to me when I see her.
And I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to get ready on the show.
Yeah.
And
fun.
have a little bit of fun. But also this is, you know, taking it that little bit further into metaphorically actually saying, look, we're going to bear it all as females, as mums and as daughters, as nieces, you know, as a boss or, you know, however we show up in this, you know, world. Yeah. And I kind of feel that we need to be able to express ourselves in however form we want to. Yeah. And I love this space. I love that we can, you know, be ourselves here and just know that we are not judged in this space as well, you know. And so as we go through this segment, I'm going to be doing my makeup as well because, you know, I'm a person that loves fashion and I love getting dressed up and getting ready. And so for me, makeup for me is nor here nor there. But it's got to this point now that I've worked on it so much that it is comfortable for me to show up here today. No makeup, let you see it all, my freckles and all of my glory.
Yeah. Even our lines just show our lives and our emotions. And our face says a lot about who we are.
Exactly.
And I think we really fight this aging process and pigmentation and, you know, all the changes that are out of our control. But as women, we fight them and try to cover it up with makeup or Botox or, you know, whilst we're saying like all those things are fine. But if you're putting makeup on or you're altering your face from a place of not feeling good enough or not feeling attractive enough, like you're doing it to validate yourself or feel more desirable or fighting just the natural process of life and, you know, then it's not so healthy. But I think it's beautiful that you have a relationship now and I could agree too. Like I actually don't wear makeup like hardly ever.
Yeah, no, you should see Michelle.
I very much don't have the time for it really. But when we do it, it's fun. It's our creativity and enhancing ourselves. And I've got a makeup background as well. And I find it's more my artistic sort of expression. Yeah. But with or without, I still feel, you know, I feel okay within myself.
No matter what, Michelle.
Back at you.
So
let's get this.
I'm not really, this is me getting ready in the mornings and I've pretty much bought all my basic stuff here. I don't really follow what trends there are and I'm not, and brands, look, I go with what feels good for me. So I'm just, you know, and I always go with how I feel. If it feels like, as I've aged, I think my makeup has changed also quite a fair bit. Oily skin to dry skin and then combination skin and also having children, it changes. Less is more, right? Yeah. Some days I just walk out of the house and I'll just
going to do a skanky man.
Well, you know, I can.
No, today.
Well, I could try. But yeah, I'm just not like, I kind of trust my body and how it's going to feel. And I mean, I guess there are times where you buy makeup and you kind of go, oh, look, this hasn't really worked for me. And then you kind of wasted, you know, $70 on a bottle.
Yeah, and it should be about enhancing your features versus actually trying to alter completely what you look like.
Yeah. And look, I think today's, you know, it's about bearing those hard times. Like I had a full set of lashes last week. And I showed up here today with hardly any on. I had a news yesterday. My dog wasn't feeling well, and our fur babies, to me, is like the absolute world. They provide you so much comfort, support in times where, you know, you find it hard to cope through your own emotions yourself. And then, you know, get to a point in life where you know that there's going to be that time that you got to maybe one day say goodbye to your furry babies. And yesterday, one of my Rottweilers wasn't feeling well after his walk, so I took him to the vet, and we had a bit of devastating news from our vet, and it was lymphoma, possibly in the blood, and they did run some tests, and it did show some signs of it. However, you know, I think my first initial thought was, how long has he got to live? And anywhere from 2 to 3 months, if not treated, to perhaps, if it's, you know, operation, chemo and all that, that's 12 months down the track. After getting all that, use, I was absolutely devastated. Yeah, it's only like 6 years old.
Yeah, I think that's harder to come to terms with as well, just because too young.
Yeah, so, hubby and I shared our moment with, Amal, and we just couldn't stop crying all day yesterday. And as I was crying, I'm rubbing my eyes, lashes are falling off. But to me, it's not, I didn't care about the lashes in the end. I knew it was going to show up today. And
I said to her, if you don't feel up to it, like, that is totally fine. But I think it's really brave of you to want to show up and actually be vulnerable and share your process.
It's life. We're going to show up at certain parts or times in our life where we're going to just have to show up. Yeah. And today is bearing it all and being vulnerable in front of the camera, in front of an audience that's possibly watching and listening as well. And, and if you don't like what you see, you can always change the channel.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not,
Yeah.
You either like us or you don't.
Yeah. And I think you going through what you're going through in the depths of it and being brave enough to show up and share, I think that's sometimes some of the greatest gifts we can give to people and the most powerful sort of teaching, because you're now trying to use the tools you've learnt, and this healing journey is a forever unfolding, and we have different challenges at different stages of our paths. So this is you then, trying to do the work through it. And rather than, I guess, our natural, probably maybe in the past, we would both maybe retreat when things get too hard. You just want to like disassociate, retreat, escape, hide away from the world. And there are times where that may be what you need. But I think to show up is really powerful, and not to put the pressure that you have to put a
you
face
don't have
on.
to. Yeah, you don't literally.
Exactly.
Literally.
You can just be how you're feeling and not have to fake, I'm happy. And because the inner conflict you have when you're trying to present yourself to the world in a certain way, but you're really dying on the inside, I think that's really emotionally damaging. Yeah.
Look, I just realised that if I show up today, I might be able to help somebody that's going through something. Yeah. And knowing that if you show up sad, frustrated, or just simply just in a meh state, or not really vibing today, it's okay. Yeah. Just sit with it.
Yeah. And I am loving the bear it all metaphor, because so many people maybe do put a front on. Yeah. Like, even just in general, just like people want to seem, like on social media, particularly, like, people put lots of filters on their face. Like, so you're not necessarily seeing what a person really looks like or altering their bodies. Yeah. You're seeing people share certain aspects of their life, like the highlight reel, which isn't a balanced view of what people's lives are. So we're then looking at people's lives thinking, oh, they're holidaying all the time, or they've got all these things and their body's amazing, or their relationship's good. But generally that people are just sharing what they want to share, maybe to be seen a certain way, and maybe even like to convince themselves. Do you know, like even just to friends, sometimes, you know, when you're connecting with someone and they're sharing, but it just doesn't feel authentic to how they're feeling. It's like they're sharing words, but the tone and the emotions aren't like in congruency.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to connect with a real person if they're not actually just being really honest and vulnerable. And I love vulnerability because I feel like, and that's probably why we've got a close connection, is because the more you're willing to be vulnerable to the people closest to you, you're actually giving them permission and safety to actually then be vulnerable back.
Yes.
Whereas I guess there are a lot of superficial connections, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's obviously where that person's at in their life, and maybe they're just not connected to, or don't know how to express how they feel, or they feel they might appear lesser than if they're sharing hardship or things they're struggling with. So I do think it is about bearing it all and being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So powerful.
I have found that I think this week has been one of the most challenging moments with, you know, balancing work, balancing the kids, balancing emotions. You know, there are highs and lows. You know, my kids are doing really well in their sports, and I should be celebrating that time. So there's that literal roller coaster of emotions that you got to go in and out from, and it's it can be exhausting at the same time. But there's at the same time getting you to feel into that moment of gratitude. Yeah. And when you do have some good moments, hang on to it as well. Yeah. And with my dog, look, I'm going to hang on to that moment that I've got with him, you know, in this time and space, and very lucky that I've got that opportunity to still be able to still do that with him. And there's, you know, other parts in life where it's your external environment is just going to show up that is completely out of your control. Yeah. And as a person who has worked on some inner healing, it really is important to how do you sit with whatever emotion that is going to come up at that moment. And that self-inquiry to that emotion, and is it valid for you to feel it? Of course it is, because it's something you might have felt from something similar in the past as well. Yeah. Being able to be vulnerable with yourself and just like this space. Yeah,
and not run away from it, because it catches up anyways, especially I think when someone's grieving, and I guess maybe you're almost just letting yourself to start grieving a little bit. Yeah. I think if we try to distract too much, and we have seen people that have gone through really intense grief and they've tried to divert their attention onto something else, and they can do that for a certain period of time, but as soon as everything slows down, everything that you didn't process, it just hits you hard. So it is nice to be able to give yourself a bit of space to have the cry, to feel the pain. I think what can be really powerful for people is that a lot of the energy goes up into the mind. When we're hurting or struggling, often we go into the story about it versus just dropping into the body. And that can be one helpful, I guess, pointer for people, is that if you are going through a very intense emotion and you can just feel yourself looping in your mind about a story or the worst case scenarios or the what ifs, there's a place for the energy to be in the mind, but just trying to bring, and it is actually a way to disassociate, however, staying in the mind. So the more we can just drop into the body and just feel what's here versus energy being in the story about it and the narrative, the more we can just drop into the sensation, that will just work its way through a lot quicker as well. Yeah.
That's a really awesome explanation for that. I had someone tell me a story and I tried to relate it to, I was always afraid of the dark. And I never knew what was in the dark. So I was always petrified, hide away from it. So someone just said, just shine the light. Yeah. Turn the light on.
Yeah. So
Go, you know, it's like just simple as that. Just see what it really is, because what you never know what is actually in that dark. Yeah. It just might just be something that is not really there in the first place.
But it's the mind that's making it a bigger issue, yeah.
So sometimes facing it and turning that light on and actually seeing what's there, and or just standing there and looking at that darkness and going,
rather than taking on what was projected onto you. Someone said, oh, this is scary, or projected a story onto you, and then you took it on as your own belief of the dark. Yeah. Because but really, once you questioned it,
it's like, well, the dark is actually not that scary after all.
It's like, do you have to be scared of it?
No.
And I think we also sometimes underestimate what we're capable of feeling. I think when we get really fearful, it's almost paralyzing, and then we do find ways to not sit in it. But often when we just really sit in that emotional state, it's like, I am actually more resilient and capable to feel even the most intense emotions. If I can just sit with it and not go into the mind, I'm actually really capable, and no emotion is too great for me to be able to just sit through and be with. And it's the resisting it, going to the mind, distracting. They're the things that's like, what you fight, you strengthen, what you resist, persist.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot of truth
I love
to
that
it
saying.
too. Yeah, because it's so true.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really done too much to uplift my face at all today.
Well, you don't need to.
I don't need to. I just kind of
no.
Yeah. And I'm just really enjoying this conversation, to be honest. Yeah. And I'm okay with not even doing my face.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and just being with us and holding space with us and for Soccer and what she's going through.
Thank you.
And just, I'm so proud of you for just being real and authentic and just showing up, and gives me permission too. So I just love this and love just sharing this energy with everyone.
And just sending positive vibes to anyone that's going through a rough and tough time at the moment. So sending love to you all.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.